All right, guys, when we were graphing the quadratic equation, it was always in the form of y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, now when we're solving these things, remember when we're solving them, what it meant for solutions is when it was going through the x-axis, right? Well, whenever it went through the x-axis, if you remember, all your points were always in x comma 0. Okay, no matter where it goes through the x-axis, okay, your y will always be 0. So to set this up, we are always going to go with ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay, and then we're gonna learn how to solve for x when we do this. Okay, so we know that our solutions, what else do we call our solutions? We call them roots, we call them zeros. Okay, so a lot of different things that we call our solutions. Okay, in this case, if we're going to graph these things, we take x squared minus 4. This is our graph. Okay, and our solutions, we can see that our answers are 2 and negative 2. Okay, and we are going to go through this, and I'm going to show you how to do it without graphing. Okay, so we've got to make sure that we know the difference between a positive square root and a negative square root. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to be careful. If I have x squared equals 9, I can actually get two separate answers here, because what this is asking is it's saying what squared equals 9. Well, I can take 3 squared and I can get 9. So that's a positive square root of 9. But I can also take negative 3 and square it. If you remember, that's negative 3 times negative 3. So that's also going to give us a positive 9. So that's the negative square root of 9. But if you notice, both 3 and negative 3 worked for this. So in a lot of the stuff that we are going to do today, you have to remember that you can get two answers for this. You can get a positive answer and a negative answer. All right. So if you, in your notes, on page 39 there, what's the positive square root of 25? Well, if I take the positive square root of 25, what would be the positive of that? That's going to be 5, right? And if I take the negative square root of 4, okay, I'm going to get 2, but it's going to be the negative 2 that we're talking about. Okay, so if you flip your page one more time, all positive numbers have two square roots. Okay, we've got the positive square root and we've got the negative square root. You have to make sure that you do that the correct way. Okay. All right, so if we look at this, okay, and I have this plus minus thing in front of it, okay, if I have the positive and negative of the square root of 81, okay, that means that I have a positive square root of 81, which is 9, and the negative square root of 81, which is negative 9, okay? Whereas in this case, we've got a negative out front here, so they really just want it to be that negative square root. So it's going to be my negative that I bring down, and 8 is what I get there. In this case, if it doesn't have anything out front, then that number is just going to be positive. And the positive square root of my 121 is going to be 11. Okay, now here's the deal. This is taking the square root of negative 25. Basically, that's saying what number can I take and square it and get negative 25? I can't do that because we can't take the square root of any negative numbers. Therefore, if I have a negative underneath my square root sign, not outside, we can have it outside, that's okay. But if it's underneath my square root sign, then my answer is going to be no solution. Okay, so perfect square numbers, okay, remember that that's our whole list of perfect squares. You actually can find those on page 46 of your notes. There's a whole list of perfect squares. So if you look on page 46, which number is not on that list? 8 is not going to be on that list because 81 is a perfect square because that's 9 squared. 121 is 11 squared. and 400 is going to be 20 squared. Okay, now here's the deal. What we're going to do is we're going to solve a lot of these. Okay, but if my x squared isn't by itself, I have to get x squared by itself. So in this case, I have to get x squared. They're minusing 4, so I have to add 4. And we get x squared equals 4. Well, in order to get x by itself, we have to take the square root of both sides. So I'm going to take the square root here and the square root here, so I'm going to get x. Now here's the kicker. This is saying what squared gives me 4. Remember, if x equals 2, I get 4. But also, if x equals negative 2, I also get 4. So that's where we get 2 answers there. Okay? In this case, I have b squared minus 11 equals 0. So I have to get my b squared by itself in order for this to work. So I need to plus 11 on both sides. Those cancel out, and I get b squared equals 11. Now in order to solve both sides, I have to take the square root of both sides. So I get b equals, is that a perfect square? It's not. And it's actually not even simplifiable. So I'm going to go b equals the square root of 11. But remember that the negative works too. So I can also go with b equals negative the square root of 11. Again, 2 answers. Do not forget about that second answer. Okay. Here we've got d squared equals 81. I don't have to move anything because d squared is already by itself. So I can take the square root of d squared to get d equals the square root of 81 is 9, but it's also negative 9. Okay. Again, 2 answers. Do not forget about both of your answers. Okay. Here we've got which is the solution to m minus 49 equals 0? Well, let's solve it. We have to add 49 to both sides to get m squared by itself. So I have m squared equals 49. When I take the square root of both of them, we get m equals 7 and m equals negative 7. So which one is 7 and negative 7? That one is symbolized by that thing right there. Okay? So let's do a few more examples of this. If I've got plus 36, I've got to get my x squared by itself. So we've got x squared equals 36. Take the square root of both sides. So x equals 6 and x equals negative 6. Do you have to write it like this with x equals on both of them? Yes, you do. You can't just write 6 and negative 6. I want is x equals 6 and x equals negative 6. Okay, so this one, again, we need p squared by itself. So we're going to add 15 and add 15. Gives me p squared equals 15. Take the square root of both sides. And we get p squared, oops, sorry, square root of p squared is p. Okay, equals, can we reduce the square root of 15? We can't, so we've got p equals the square root of 15, and p equals negative the square root of 15. Okay, we check this one out, and they have plus 25. So we have to do the opposite of plus 25, and we have to minus 25. So we get r squared equals negative 25. Now in order to solve this thing, we've got to take the square root of both sides. What's the deal here? We've got r equals, what happens if we have a negative inside our square root sign? We get r equals no solution. Okay, so in that case, we've just got 1. All right, they want to know which ones have no real solutions. Well, let's check it out. We've got, if I solve this, subtracting 4, we get d squared equals negative 4. Can I take the square root of a negative? Nope. So that's 1. If I plus 17, we get k squared equals 17. I can take the square root of that, so that's okay. So that one has solutions. This one we're subtracting 16. We get k squared equals negative 16. Nothing squared gives us a negative number, so 2 will work. In this one we're adding 49, so t squared equals 49, and I can take the square root of that, so that one doesn't work. So in this case, 1 and 2 both work. Okay, a couple of them, okay, again, we've kind of got to go back to solving some of our equations where we solve for our letter in order to do this. Okay, in this case, I've got to add my 100. 4t squared equals 100, and then they're multiplying, so we have to divide by 4. So t squared equals 25. Now I can take my square roots of both sides, and we get t equals 5 and t equals negative 5. Again, 2 answers. Here we're going to add 54, and we've got 6d squared equals 54. If we can divide by 6, we've got d squared equals 9. We take the square root of both sides. What's my square root of 9? We get d equals 3, and d equals negative 3. Do not forget your second answer. Oops. Okay, one more slide and then you guys can work. Okay, here we've got plus 15. Okay, so 5x squared equals 15. Then we have to divide by 5. X squared gives me 3. Now I have to take the square root of both sides. So I've got my 2 answers of x equals the square root of 3 and x equals negative square root of 3. And you can leave it just like that. Okay, on this one we've got minus 98, so let's add our 98. We have 2b squared equals 98. Then we can divide by our 2. We get b squared equals 49, and very last step, square root of 49 is b equals 7. But don't forget the lonely Mr. Negative number, and also get b equals negative 7. Okay, so nothing super major that's going on. Everything that you've done deals with square roots. We've done lots and lots of square roots. There's a list of perfect squares on page 46 of your notes. Okay, and your assignment is pages 47 through 50. No, we already did 47 through 50. Sorry guys, your assignment today is page 53 through 56, and that's just for this period, so you're going to want to work because you've got more to do next period.